Chris Bassitt recently came out and effectively said that we as Blue Jays fans should start placing more blame on the players for this disappointing season rather than the management. So let's do it. In this video, we're going to be looking at the 5 most disappointing Toronto Blue Jays players from this season who, for whatever reason, just didn't meet the expectations that a lot of us had for them. Before we get into it, I encourage you guys to hit the like and smash the subscribe button if you enjoy Blue Jays content and discussion so you don't miss any future videos. Alright folks, let's get into it. So it only feels fitting that we should start off this list with none other than Chris Bassitt. Chris Bassitt is 35 years old right now, and I think that it is very fair to say that this season in 2024 has been the worst one in his career ever. This year, Bassitt has a 4.2 ERA over 163 innings pitched and a whip of 1.411. Now, ultimately, that ERA of 4.2 isn't the worst thing ever, you know? Like, there's some guys out there that, if they had a 4.2 ERA, would be very happy with it, but this video is all about expectations, and the expectations for Chris Bassitt are, well, frankly, a lot higher than that. This is the highest ERA that Chris Bassitt has had since 2016, and we also got to factor in that this year on the Toronto Blue Jays, he's getting paid $22 million. At the end of the day, Chris Bassitt isn't sinking this team, but when you're getting paid $22 million and you have a WAR of 0.5, it's just not good enough, and if the Toronto Blue Jays are hoping to be competitive once again in 2025, then they're gonna need a lot more from Chris Bassitt. Next, let's talk about Bichette. For a couple months now, I, as well as a couple other Toronto Blue Jays fans, have loosely been referring to this season from Bichette as the season from hell. Basically, anything that could have went wrong Bichette this season has a .222 batting average, an on base of .275, a slugging of .320, and an OPS of .595. That OPS is by far the worst one of his career, and it's over 200 points lower than what it was last season. On top of all of that, the power from Bichette was just completely gone, and in 80 games played, he ended up with only 4 home runs. And I know that Bichette was never a power hitter, but when you're talking about a guy that's got a .222 batting average, only 4 home runs, and OPS below 600, it's just not very good, and all of it has worked out so that he currently has a WAR of -0.3. The on-the-field stuff was obviously terrible from Bichette this year, but I think that it just gets even worse when you factor in that he did get injured, and then also just all of the off-field drama that was going on between him and the management. You know, like, there were some comments made, and I think that a lot of Toronto Blue Jays fans are, well, not super happy with the way that Bichette is looking at this team moving forward. Now, I do know that he recently came out and said that he wants to be here long term and everything like that, but the future right now for Bichette on the Toronto Blue Jays, it's not very clear, and frankly, we don't even know if he's gonna be with this team next year or past that. Ultimately, I think everyone, including Bichette, would agree that this has been a pretty disappointing year. The third player I want to discuss on the Blue Jays all disappointing list is Erik Swanson. Swanson last year was a rock for the Toronto Blue Jays, and he was just solidified as that key setup man all year long, leading up to Jordan Romano. The 8th inning rolls around, Erik Swanson comes in and locks it down, but this season, it has been a very different story. Swanson started off the year injured, and it feels like he's just never been able to catch up. On the season, he's got an ERA of 5.67 and a whip of 1.440. Considering his ERA was below 3 last year, this is obviously a major fall off. And I think what makes this year from Erik Swanson just that much more disappointing is that walking into 2024, it felt like he was one of the few guys in that bullpen that we could really depend on and that we could count on, And now that we've seen this from Erik Swanson, right? Like, we've got this whole year of sample size. I just have no idea what to expect from him moving forward in 2025. If the Jays bullpen wants to have any hope of bouncing back next year, then we are going to need to see a different version of Erik Swanson. Next, let's talk about Davis Schneider. Now, I do hate to include Davis Schneider on this list because at the time of recording this video, he's just started to turn things around, but on the season, it hasn't been great. Unlike many of the other players on this list, Schneider isn't getting paid a ton or has a massive track record to go off of or anything like that, but it still didn't stop Toronto Blue Jays fans from getting very excited about him walking into this season. And when you have a debut month like Davis Schneider had, it's easy to see why there was so much hope. On the season, Davis is batting .201 with an on-base of .290, a slugging of .357, and an OPS of .647. Obviously, these numbers aren't even close to what it was looking like for him last year, and it's raised a lot of question marks about what his future with this team is actually going to look like. Finishing the year strong is going to be very important for Davis Schneider, but even if he does, there's no guarantee that he's going to be on this roster kicking off next year. Finally, let's talk about George Springer.
Whoa, time for your daily Betway breather. A quick reminder that the best place to bet is on Betway. Must be 19 years of age or older to play. In collaboration with iGaming Ontario, please bet responsibly. Now, back to the content.
I think a very strong argument could be made for why George Springer is the most disappointing Toronto Blue Jay on this list when you really do zoom out and just factor everything in. Springer this year has hit for a .221 batting average, has an on-base of .305, a slugging of .375, and an OPS of .680. Any baseball player wouldn't be happy with that slash line, but when you consider that his name is George Springer and that he is getting paid just under $25 million this year, it starts to look pretty bad. To be the highest paid player on the team and have an OPS plus of 93 is just simply not good enough. Now, Springer is pretty open about the fact that he's been playing poorly and even recently came out and talked about how the players need to recognize that this has been a rough season for them, but it still doesn't change the results. The Blue Jays still have a couple more years of George Springer under contract, and considering the guy turns 35 on Thursday this week, there isn't a whole lot of hope for the future. But folks, those are the 5 most disappointing Toronto Blue Jays players of this season. Let me know in the comments down below what you think about this list, and if you enjoyed this style of content, then please let me know. Maybe I'll make a whole video of the most surprising 5 Toronto Blue Jays players and spin it in a positive light from this year as well. Thank you so much for watching, everybody, and as always, go Jays go.